When did we start seeing our children as a burden and not a blessing? Because this shift didn't just happen overnight. Honestly, I think a lot of Christian women can feel it, but they can't quite name it. Now, before we go pointing fingers at the world, let's be honest, because this change was slow. It happened generation by generation. There was a time not long ago when children were seen as wealth, not financially, but spiritually and relationally. A full table meant a full life, and your children were seen as your legacy, your help, your joy in old age. The Bible captures this perfectly. Like the arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is he who fills his quiver with them. But something shifted, and I think it was three things really. First, the economy changed. 2 generations ago, families could live on one budget. Now, families feel like they need 2 incomes to survive. And children went from being an asset to a line item on a budget. And when everything has a price tag, the child becomes a cost to calculate rather than a soul to welcome. Second, the definition of success changed. We started measuring a life well lived by career achievement, travel, experiences, and freedom. Now, none of those things are bad things, but when they become the goal, children become the obstacle. The world started whispering, and now it's shouting that children hold you back from becoming who you could be. Moms, if this conversation matters to you, there is a community of us wrestling with these questions together. Hit subscribe and join the family. I post videos every week that encourages biblical motherhood and raising your children to love the Lord. And third, and this is the one that hits closest to home, the church started believing it too. Because here's the hard truth, moms. We can still sit in church every Sunday or every Sabbath and still absorb the culture's view of children without even realizing it. You see, we plan our families around our comfort, and we talk about our children as a stage to endure rather than a calling to embrace. We count down until they're in school, until they're independent, until we get our lives back. Now, I'm not saying that motherhood isn't hard, but hard doesn't mean bad. Hard doesn't mean that it isn't exactly what God has called us to do. You see, the world looks at a child and says, what will this child cost me? But the Bible looks at a child and says, here is a reward from the Lord. Those are 2 completely different starting points. And Christian moms, you have to decide which one you're going to set your mind on, because you cannot hold on to both. But let me pause here and say something that I think a lot of moms need to hear. If you feel defensive right now, I get it. Listen, I grew up in a culture that looked at children as an accessory to a full life rather than the center of it. But I had to do the hard work myself to shift my mindset from this cultured view. So the question isn't whether society shifted, because it did. The question is whether we're going to allow that shift to define our own homes. Because here's what's at stake. Your children are watching how you talk about them, whether you talk about them as a burden or as a blessing. And they know if they were an interruption or if they were wanted into this life. Proverbs tells us that by beholding, we become changed. So what are you beholding in your motherhood? Instagram reels that mock the chaos of parenting, parents complaining about their children being a burden? Or are you saturating your mind with the truth that every child is an image bearer of God, placed in your home for a purpose? So what do we do? How do we push back at the culture that sees our children as a burden instead of a blessing when we're in that culture every day? First, change your language. The words you speak over your children shape how you see them. Stop joking about needing wine to survive motherhood. Stop calling your children wild or crazy as your default description and start speaking life over them. Start calling them what God sees them, a blessing, a heritage, and a reward. Second, guard your inputs. The podcasts you listen to, the accounts that you follow, the friends who you vent to, do they build up your view of motherhood or do they tear it down? You cannot expect to marinate in a culture that despises children and love motherhood the way that God intended. Third, reclaim the biblical vision. Read Psalms 127, meditate on it, read it aloud. It says that unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it in vain. You see, the world has a blueprint for your family, and God has one too, and it's different from that of the world. And Christian mom, your home should be where that difference is most visible. So here's what I want you to take away from this more than anything else. You see, the culture didn't just wake up one day and decide that our children were a burden. It was decades of small little shifts, economical, social, spiritual, that got us here. And reversing it in our hearts starts the same way. Small shifts. One changed thought, one scripture spoken instead of a complaint, and one day of choosing to see the gift rather than the cost. So you're not raising a burden, you're raising an eternal soul, and that changes everything. So moms and dads, I have a question for you. Have you felt this shift in how people talk about children? Have you maybe heard it in the workplace, in your family, or perhaps in church? I'd like to have an honest conversation about this, so let me know in the comments. And if this video encouraged you, share it with another mom who needs to hear that her children are a blessing and not a burden. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.